Welcome back to another edition of Time Smart Teaching with me, Jane Bell. I am the Time Smart teacher here to make you work smarter and not harder in your teaching job. And today I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. Keith McNally, who is also known as the Question Guide and has his own podcast, which is fantastic. And so it's nice to be able to return the favor and have him on here to talk about his exciting new mission that he's got coming up, which is going to involve lots of schools and potentially teachers. So before I say any more, Keith, do you want to introduce yourself briefly and tell us all about what your mission is?
Jane, thank you so much. Absolutely. So I am on a mission to get this book, Walking the Path, A Leader's Journey, into the hands of 1 million teenagers by the end of 2023. That is my mission.
That's a great mission. And it's a big audacious goal, which is great because there's a saying, isn't there, that if your goals are not big enough to scare you, then they're not big enough goals, which I love. And tell me what's prompted you to do this specifically with your book?
So my book is all about leadership, but from a non-traditional perspective. Many leaders get into leadership positions through their academic pursuits, whether they go, they get a college, they get a master's degree, and whether they get an MBA or some type of doctoral or terminal degree, they end up having the title of leader because they're in a position at an agency or school or whatever, and they assume that position. This book takes a different perspective of how to become a leader, because not everybody is given the opportunity to do an academic pursuit, but you can still make an impact on your world, on others, as long as you know what it is that you're doing. So this book takes a group of young people, typically 17, 18 years old, and they have a mission to cross over the mountain. And so that particular goal, given the fact that they've never crossed it before, requires them to learn a whole lot about themselves, requires them to learn a whole lot about each other, to work together, and to really dig deep and understand how to set expectations, how to work together, how to collaborate, and really understand the core essence of their being. And in doing so, they're able to achieve their goal and really understand the purpose for which they exist. And that's to help each other out.
That's interesting because I didn't know that about your book beforehand. And is this like a theoretical journey, or is this journey with the young people based in like facts or like your experience somewhere along the line, or is it just as a metaphor to demonstrate leadership skills or the leadership journey?
Well, my leadership journey took a little bit different path than, like I said, the norm. And so a lot of things happened to me in the past couple of years, and I wanted to get on stage. I wanted to become a speaker. I wanted to become a speaker, and I have a message, but I didn't know how to get there. So what I did is I started connecting with people on my LinkedIn platform. Before, they were just names, they were just pictures, but I really wanted to get to know who they were. And so my mission starting 2 years ago was to have personal, real relationships with those people who I only knew as a name and a face. And so I literally just started reaching out to people and saying, hey, do you want to have a conversation? And it just happened to be we're in quarantine, so we're moving out of quarantine past the pandemic, and people were saying yes. They wanted to have conversations with me. I think they wanted to have conversations with as many people as possible because they felt
Mhm.
stuck and isolated. And Zoom gave us that power, that permission to really connect with people. So we were just using it. From there, I connected with a very special person. His name is Mitch Gray, and I always mention him in most of my conversations because I told him what I wanted to accomplish. I just didn't know how to get there, and I didn't have the money or the resources to accomplish that. And I say that because there are lots of speaking coaches out there in the world, but easily any one of them are going to charge you $10,000 or more they're going to give you results, but you're going to pay for them up front.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
I didn't have those resources, but I still wanted to achieve my goal. And Mitch said, he actually gave me 4 things. And so I internalized them, and now I talk about them all the time. He said, yes, you can. So he said, yes, you can achieve your goal. I give you permission, because at that point, I didn't really know how to. And I often never really, even though I wanted to have a goal, I wanted to speak on stage, I wanted to share my thoughts and my experiences with the world. I didn't know how to go about that. And I really didn't think I could. We grew up with this imposter syndrome, and we
Oh
have a
yeah.
lot of negative thoughts going through our head. But he said, yes, you can. And I give you permission. And then he said 2 more things that are really impactful. He said, because you are able. And that's something that we don't typically think about ourselves as being able to accomplish. But once somebody says that we are able and that we can, it changes our world. And then finally, he said, let's find a way. Let's do this together. Let's find a way to accomplish your goal. And Jane, this is part of that goal. So this is the first step of understanding how to make real, concrete changes in your life in order to achieve the goal and impact that you want to have on other people.
Yeah. And I think what you said is really important about giving yourself permission to do big things. And I think that's an important message that today's teenagers and today's students need to hear, because a lot of them are lacking in self-confidence. I know you taught for quite a long time. I'm not sure what age range you teach, but I teach high school. And I do think like there's a lot of doubt and there's a lot of confidence that's been sapped from this particular generation because of COVID. They're like, oh, my education's ruined. I'm not going to be able to, sit my exams. And it's like they've resigned themselves to not being able to accomplish what they want. So in that sense, it will be a great book for them, to motivate them academically as well as develop some leadership skills. So are there any like simple tools or activities that a teacher could do easily to help develop some leadership skills in their classes that they teach, either on a whole class basis or like on a one-to-one with a young person? What could they do? Could you give them something to work with?
I can. So the book is broken down chapter by chapter, just like any other book, but it's combining story. So there is narrative that you can read with your students. And the narrative is easily, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages. They're not very long chapters, and they go into a whole lot of dialogue. So we really get an understanding of what each of the main characters, and there's 4 of them, are thinking, how they're understanding their world, how they're understanding each other's world, the frustrations and fears that they are experiencing, and even some of the negative inputs, I guess, from the world that they live in. And so they live in this very isolated community. I just call it a valley surrounded by a mountain. Just the whole metaphor of, we're isolated and everything is status quo. We don't want anything to change. And so we get those experiences, but beyond that, I put in Q&A. I put questions in the back at the end of each chapter. So we take a look at, what's going on with this character? Why did they do this? And so there is a way to use this book in a very academic setting because the questions are already there. And then at the
Yeah.
very end of each chapter, you go to a place where it just says, thoughts. And I'll just point it to right here. If I find, let me find it real quick because they're okay. And it says take note. And so it gives you a whole page just to get your thoughts down, because that's one of the habits I talk about in my leadership coaching is get into the practice of writing, get into the practice of journaling, because everything that's in your head you're going to forget a lot of it. So when you write it
Mm.
down, you can refer back to it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of books that have note pages, especially at the back, and I always find that they don't have enough. I'm always running out of the note pages, so that's a good thing. Okay, and so what sets your leadership book apart from the raft of other leadership books that are out there?
So I look at this as a very practical way of leadership 101 training. We take a look at what's going on with each of the characters. Why do they make the decisions that they do? How are they understanding their purpose? How are they building trust and authenticity with each other? There's even one character who she's an 18-year-old girl, and she was born deformed. So her left hand is kind of fused together. And because of that, she is not only different, but never created any friendship with the kids her age. And now that she's 18 and past school age, she has to go to work. But in this community, being different is being weird. And so she's having trouble keeping any job that she gets because of her hand. And so with that, we really get an understanding of why it was important for these four people to want to cross over the mountain and want to find out what life can be if it can be different than here. And that's a really powerful statement, because we typically think of our lives as enclosed and controlled by the
Mhm.
society that we live in. But this book reaches beyond those parameters, reaches beyond those restrictions, and gives you that question, what really is possible?
Yeah, expand your horizons. Think bigger. And where can people get your book? Is it on Amazon? Where do they get it from?
Oh, absolutely. We can totally get this book on Amazon, and we will leave that link in the description. Thank you so much, Jane.
And that's fab. And so you are fundraising. Are you to try and get 1 million copies of the book into, young people's hands? So
So
tell us a
the
little bit about how people can do that, can help you achieve your big goal.
So I'm thinking about doing a Kickstarter campaign, definitely a crowdfunding campaign. This book really does need to get into the hands of 1 million teenagers. It's going to change their life. It's going to make them have a purpose. It's going to give them a reason to make an impact on other people.
Yeah, and we need great futures of the lead. We need great leaders of the future. Get my words out. You and I have talked before about there being a dearth, a void of great leadership so often in education, and so this is a way of, paying it forward to the future and, nurturing the leaders, and not just the school leaders, but the leaders in general of the future. So that wraps it up. So thank you very much, Dr. Keith and Ali, for joining me. I will make sure that the crowdfunding link goes in either the video description or in the comments below. If you feel you're able to, help meet that goal, then please check that out. And thank you for staying with us and listening with us today on the Time Smart Teaching channel. We will catch you again soon. Bye.
Take care. Thank you, Jane.